Hi, everyone. My name is Dana, and this is episode 32 of the Ask a Question Show, the show in which you ask a question about any type of narcissistic or otherwise abusive or toxic relationship or situation, and I, along with the rest of the community here, will do our very best to help answer it. Our goal is to give you the feedback and the support that you need so that you can move forward in getting the clarity, the closure, and the healing that you so deserve. And so today's question comes from Niels. Niels and by the way, hi Niels. I am so glad to see you around. I was actually just thinking about you the other day, so kind of weird timing on that. Niels asks, "Hey Dana, I have a question for you for the next episode, or maybe not, but I would like it answered as I kind of have a theory about what it is going on that makes you do all of this." I'll be curious to know your theory, Niels. You have said you've fallen in love with two narcissists now, so you're kind of a narcissist magnet, right? You have a whole list of what a man should be like to become your perfect partner. A list that seems impossible, but that's just me. If something is too good to be true, it usually is, comes to mind reading your whole list that describes the impossible Superman. Haha. Yes, a narcissist can be all your list describes. This is true. Now, what I've been reading about lately is something different. It's about codependent people. These kinds of people have been raised by either a borderliner or narcissistic parent. We'll just say cluster B, and because of this feel the need to find the perfect man or woman. Most of the time, the partners they seek are like their narcissistic parent. You say that your love kind of went away instantly when you had your first narcissistic partner experience, but how come you fell into the second trap? There is a new theory ongoing that codependent people tend to hold on to a relationship with a narcissist for a lot of years and even tend to stay in it as long as possible because it's familiar to them. In what degree do you think you are codependent? Or were you raised as a happy kid with loving parents? Or was there some sort of borderline or narcissism going on and trauma in your childhood? Okay, great questions. Thank you so much for asking. I will try to do my best to address them. And, the reason that, just so you guys know, that I am addressing these questions here in an episode of the show and not just responding to Neil's one-on-one is because I I think it's a great conversation to kind of open up. I think a lot of people I think have a lot of questions about kind of why am I doing this and who am I and kind of what's going on. And then also I think a lot of Niels's questions are fantastic for us to ask ourselves and to kind of get clarity as far as what kind of where we are with our understanding of ourselves and codependency and narcissism and all that. So let me start from the beginning. So what makes me do all of this? By and large, it was a response out of frustration. So I went through two relationships with two flat out narcissists. But although if you kind of expanded the term, there's been these kinds of people, highly manipulative people throughout my life. I've had many friendships with them. I've dated lots of guys that have, knowing what I know now, that I would say we're very difficult, toxic, highly manipulative people. And just Steve and Jack were the only ones that I think truly came on to my radar as problematic because those relationships ended in such an extreme way that it was for sure outside the realm of normal behavior. Whereas the other people in my life, I thought it was just on like the bad end of normal behavior, but really that doesn't matter because either way, if it's toxic, it's toxic. Person doesn't have to be a narcissist in order to ruin your life, right? So yes, I was really frustrated when I was going through all of this. I got tangled up with a lot of bad advice, with a lot of well-intentioned bad advice, with a lot of just kind of misinformation. I felt like I would even refer to it at the time. I felt lost in the paper bag that was my life, was how I would describe what was going on with me to other people. And I had a hard time getting out and I couldn't figure out how to get out of it and how to get the clarity I needed. My clarity really came from finding support groups and realizing and seeing my story reflected in other people's stories and then realizing we're just all telling different versions of the same story. And that was so comforting to me to know that I wasn't alone and that I wasn't crazy. And it helped to put, a lot of the confusion that I had, is it him? Is it me? Is it this? Is it that? Or to rest when you start seeing how, when you start hearing like hundreds, if not thousands of other stories that are just like yours and getting that clarity that helps you to move on to getting that closure and getting the heck out of there. So I guess I wanted to provide a platform to help to just open up that conversation so other people didn't have to flail around and trying to reinvent the wheel. Like, the wheel is already out there. There is a ton of clarity about all of this out there. And so I just kind of wanted to make it known, because it frustrates me that this has happened to so many people, and yet it's not like mainstream conversation. And the mainstream conversations that are being had about abuse are freaking wrong. Or maybe not necessarily totally wrong, but they're very like limited. And that makes me like freaking crazy, because it's this idea of, okay, abuse is only physical, right? And we have this idea that only men can be abusers and that only women can be victims. And it's only abuse if you've got giant bruises on your face and are huddled in a corner. Like, that's kind of the poster that we think of when we think of domestic violence. And that's really actually a very small sliver of the picture, but that's what gets funding. And that's really what it all boils down to, is that kind of imagery triggers funding. And it's just, there's so many layers of like, it's so frustrating. And I feel like we're all doomed to stay sick and lost in dysfunction if we don't start having these open and honest conversations about stuff that people need to talk about. So that's what gets me, and before, I used to work at a domestic violence center, so I'm very familiar with that aspect of it, of abuse. And, and there's lots of emotional abuse at domestic violence centers too, but it's just really not talked about. I do this because, I'm a psychiatric nurse. So I work day in and day out with people with personality disorders and that are chronically mentally ill, and my own personal experience of this, and then just kind of trying to figure it out and trying to share what I've learned to help other people not fall in these potholes that are out there. So that's kind of that. So am I a narcissist magnet? No, I don't think that I am. I don't like the term magnet, I guess, is my problem with that, because to me it implies that there's some sort of, polarizing, connecting forces at work. So I guess polarizing would be opposite, but magnetizing, right? Forces at work between people. And to me, that I feel like I would lose my sense of power and control if I were to say that there's kind of just this like force at work that I'm not okay with. I guess that's up for debate, but I think why I had been attracting narcissists, like you ask, how come I fell for it twice? The first time was, and like I said, if I get rid of the label of narcissist and kind of open it up to just highly manipulative people or even toxic people, then that includes a lot more than just Jack and Steve. Jack and Steve, I said, they were extreme examples because those relationships ended in extreme ways. So it was hard for me to not see that. But, how come I kept falling for these people? Well, I did a video a while back about a question somebody had asked in one of the support groups about empty buckets. And basically the whole theory was, what two things did you feel that you didn't get from your parents, either real or perceived, as a child? And emotionally. So like, what emotionally two things did you feel that you didn't get? So for me, I went around feeling ignored and unloved. I didn't get a lot of affection, and I didn't really get a lot of attention. And in large part, my parents are really not that affectionate of people. So that's part of it. But also the attention to thing, they had their own business. They were really busy with that. My brother has a learning disorder. They were really busy with him. I was a very independent child. And I just kind of, the whole like squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of thing. So everything kind of went to my brother, and I was okay with that. I didn't need that. I was always a quiet kid. I'd liked to read and write and just kind of do my own thing. And so, I don't think that their intentions were malicious or to be hurtful. I think it was that it's just kind of how everything went down. Not saying that it's okay, just saying that that's kind of how everything went down. And then that's how I internalized that. And so that's what's made me so susceptible, I think, to the love bombing and the rushing of intimacy, because I am starved out for that. So any type of like love and attention, I just like, binge on. And that's what I was feeding into with that. And I'll talk about this in some other videos down the road here, but interestingly enough, a lot of people that I think have those empty buckets also do the rushing of intimacy and the love bombing. And I have done that too in my past. That doesn't make me a narcissist. It makes me, I think, hungry for those two things. So my intentions were to get that, you know, to kind of fill those empty buckets. I like having that intense level of intimacy with people. I like knowing other people to that level, and so that's kind of where I was going wrong with it too. So I think that answers your question. That's kind of why I was falling for it. My perfect partner list. Okay, so I don't remember all I'd really said in other videos, but by and large, I'm looking for somebody who's open-minded, who's sincere, who's honest, who is accountable for their behavior, who is emotionally available, who is fun to be around, who's intelligent, these kinds of things. And, physical appearance, I mean, we all have our preferences, but for me, it's more of connecting at an internal level that's more important than an external level. So, but physical, okay, like it totally exists. Like if we were to say what my ideal man would be like, my ideal man would really be like Henry Rollins. Like that's my ideal man. I freaking love Henry Rollins. So Henry, if you're listening, like call me, yeah. But just kidding. So I'm not kidding. Yes, so he does exist. So I mean, it's totally possible. Maybe is he a narcissist? I don't know. But yeah, no, there's more people than just like Henry Rollins out there, right? Like there's a lot of really cool, just down to earth, sincere, honest, open, authentic people out there. And that's what I thought Steve and Jack were, and that's why I was attracted to them, because they were just mirroring all of that back to me. And let's see, you mentioned codependent people and hanging in there for years. Okay, so codependency, to me, that word is about as broken as the word forgiveness, which is about as broken as the word narcissist, meaning that lots of people are running around with lots of different ideas about what this word means. And it adds a ton more confusion to an already confusing situation, which is really, again, very frustrating for me. So, like a lot of people think that narcissists are just people that are vain. And that's not the case, right? Like narcissists, they also are often very grandiose. They lack empathy. They lack remorse. They're selfish. They're entitled. They exploit other people. So they're a lot more than just vain. Codependent people, there's two kind of main, I think, definitions that people seem to have about codependency, or maybe it's just the definitions that I have that I just assume other people have. I don't know. I'll be curious to hear what you guys have to say about it. But codependency, the word was coined originally it's associated with Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's the term that's given. So you have the alcoholic, and then you have their partner, and their partner was coined codependent, and because that they were enabling this person to not suffer natural consequences. So these people were always bailing these people out, and they were calling in sick to work for them. They were, making sure the kids were quiet during the day because their partner was hungover. They were walking on eggshells. They weren't dealing with the elephant in the room, which was the alcoholism. So a lot of people think, well, I'm not codependent because my partner's not an alcoholic. Right? So there's that level of confusion. Well, the label's kind of been more expanded to mean somebody that has issues or challenges with boundaries and standards. But a lot of people think a codependent person really always says, and to an extreme they do. They always say yes, they're a doormat, they justify other people's behavior, they excuse a lot of bad behavior, and they value they will stick with somebody through thick and thin, and they really don't ever get to this like deal breaker point with other people. They value commitment over anything, but really they're confusing commitment with this like codependency, because it's not okay to stay with somebody if they're dragging you through hell. There's something really wrong there. But again, there's a lot of like different things at play there. I think a lot of people stay in these relationships for years, if not decades, because they simply don't realize that what they're in is abusive. A lot of people think that abuse is, you have a male abuser and a female victim, and that the abuse only happens if a person has bruises all over their face. but that's not the case. Addiction, lying, cheating, stealing, put downs, silent treatment, grinding a person down, these kinds of things, that all falls within the spectrum of abuse. And if you're going through this constantly, then it's an abusive relationship. However, you have this, again, you have terminology that the rest of the world understands, but then there's like people that are in support groups understand, and these are two very different things. So if you were to say, well, yeah, he calls me names and he cheats, and you were to say, oh, that's abusive, to the rest of the world, no, it's not abusive. Like, he's just a jerk. So it's hard, and that kind of like adds to the crazy making, because then it's really invalidating to victims, because people are like, oh, well, he can change. He just needs to, do enough time, give him enough love or therapy, or be a better wife or a husband, or, rehab or counseling. And then this person will change. But, the reality is a person will only change if they really want to change. So codependent, there's lots of reasons people stay in there for years. A lot of it's just being aware that what they're in is not a normal relationship. The highs and lows that they're experiencing are not normal. Normal relationships don't have extreme highs and lows like that. But again, this all, like, we get these messages about what a real relationship is, right? That kind of love conquers all. And we have these like stupid, awful, toxic, like romantic comedies and these like twisted ideas about what romance is. And, this whole, like, you complete me and all of this. So I don't think these people are necessarily super unhealthy themselves. I think they've gotten a lot of really bad, unhealthy messages over the years about what love is and what it's supposed to look like. So they're just confused. So yes, a lot of them do stay in there for years. And there's a term out there that's called just world, like having a just world perspective. And it basically means that we think the world is fair and just. So if we are operating from this standpoint that we think the world is fair and just, that the way we treat other people is the way that they will in turn treat us. If we think that's what's going on, then yes, if we think that we have the capacity to change, if we feel like we're being honest about things, then we assume that other people are interacting with us in the same way. And it often takes a long time to realize that no, a lot of people can pretend that, right? They can pretend to be truthful and remorseful, but in fact they aren't. And that it's just hard to see that if you don't realize that there are these kinds of people that are out there, there really are wolves in sheep's clothing. And of course, it's easy to spot the wolves. It's harder to spot the wolves dressed as sheep. So to what degree am I codependent? I had a therapist tell me that I had issues with codependency with my relationship. I hadn't, and I actually kind of quit. I quit seeing her after that because I felt like she was slapping labels on my relationship. I hadn't hardly even discussed my dynamic at all with Jack, and yet she was so quick to assign these labels to it, and I didn't like that. Because I didn't feel like she had enough information to assume anything. I don't know what definition of codependency she was operating from, but we definitely were not operating from the same definition. From the standpoint of boundaries and standards, I felt like mine were pretty high. I didn't have this obvious like devalue stage done to my face. There wasn't this makeup breakup phase. There wasn't, name calling with these people. There wasn't, they were absolutely, Prince Charming up until I found out about their second, their double life. So I didn't think I had any issues with codependency. Where I was going wrong is my boundaries and standards just weren't high and tight enough. And that's what's kind of scary is they have to be really solid, really, really solid. And there's, these relationships, they don't have to be like full out, narcissist or that extreme, like cluster B in order to ruin your life. They only need to be like a little bit toxic. And to really get rid of this is kind of why I'm trying to move away from the word narcissist. I really want you guys to focus on getting rid of all of the toxic people in your life, or at least minimizing contact as much as possible, because a little bit of poison will still kill you. And, so that's kind of that, but it's like to focus on really to get clear on what is healthy and what you do want, because that's where I was going wrong is I was walking that line, I feel, between healthy and just a little toxic. But yet still, I potentially almost lost my life with Jack because of that. And Steve, hands down, would have destroyed my life. So, it doesn't need to be this like extreme behavior. So getting those boundaries high and tight, really, it's, you're looking at character, you're slowing things down enough. If a person has a history, especially if they have a current history with you, with lying and cheating and stealing, to have boundaries and standards solid enough to where it's like you've got to distance yourself from them if you are going to try to work on things, for them to make the necessary changes and for you to give it like a year to really see that they've really indeed changed, and not just fall for lip service that they're sorry and that they've gone to a therapist twice and now that they have all their behavior figured out, because that's not how this works. So, you know, I feel like my degree of codependency is pretty small. It's definitely, I've been more of a giver in the past. I've been in different caregiving type fields for a long time, since I was about 16. So it's been kind of my natural bend in my personality to always want to fix people, to always want to take care of people, which are definitely like codependent type traits. So I've had to learn how to, kind of rein that in to where I'm not a doormat, and where I, can give to other people in like a healthy way to where I'm not making myself miserable. So childhood trauma and stuff, I think I already touched on that with the empty buckets thing. So I think that's all I have for you guys. I will be super curious to see what you guys have to say, what insights you have, what, kind of how, after hearing these questions, what you think about them as far as your own life goes and what aha moments you've had. So please comment down below. I'll be curious to read it, and I will talk to you guys soon. If you have any other questions, comments, concerns, frustrations, insights, ideas, feedback at all, you need some support, you just want to say hi, let me know. Best way to get a hold of me is through my support group, which I will link to down below. And as always, you guys are not alone, and you're not crazy, and you really can move forward and heal from this. So take care. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.